A transport dry cargo ship was returning from Japan with 5,000 containers of cargo. The crew was 12 men, and everything was on schedule. 300 miles off Hawaii, they spot a girl in the water. She was bobbing motionless on the waves on the port side. When the crew members bring the girl aboard, she was unconscious but alive. The guys quickly carry her to the infirmary, and there she regains consciousness. The girl's name was Melissa, and she had major memory lapses. The ship's doctor, Keith Woodward, examines her and was surprised to find a wound with teeth on her leg. Small, sharp teeth were growing out of the edge of the wound like real jaws, and the wound was trying to bite the doctor. Then the girl tells the doctor that it is calling her, but who or what is calling her was not clear, because there was no sound other than the engine noise. Dr. Keith gives the girl a sedative and goes to his cabin to rummage through the directory. At that moment, Dr. Keith hears screams in the infirmary and runs there. There he sees the girl huddled in a corner, and the XO was clutching the wound on his neck and screaming like a cutter. The XO had a part of his neck taken out, not deep, but the wound was gaping. Turns out X O'Neill decided to check on the girl, went to sick bay, and saw a strange wound. He bent down to look at it, and that's when she bit him, and the girl sat in the corner and said it was near and calling them. It was too much. So Dr. Keith tells the captain that there are 2 seriously injured men on board and that they need to get to the nearest port. But the captain replies that he is not going to risk the cargo for 2 men. A few hours later, the captain regretted his decision, but it was too late. There started real panic on the ship. 4 more crew members were injured. In addition, Dr. Keith noticed with horror that not only teeth could appear in them. When one of the sailors took off his shirt, several eyes stared at the doctor from his back, soulless, black, and they were inhuman, more like the eyes of a shark. And all the infected began to hear a voice calling them and ordering them to do something. It turned out that the mouths that appeared all over the sailors' bodies needed to be fed, otherwise they themselves would look for food for themselves. The doctor did not understand how this contagion was transmitted, but it wasn't microbial or viral stuff. Some of the crew members weren't even bitten. The captain simply cut himself while shaving, and an hour later a small eye was peeking out of the cut. Dr. Keith was lucky so far, not a scratch on his body. But as the evening wore on, it got heavier. They were in the center of a storm. This ship was tossing from side to side, and none of the crew were minding their own business. They were either looking for food for the mouths that had grown on their bodies, or talking to someone Dr. Keith couldn't hear. But the worst of it was that the girl they had pulled out of the water was gone by morning, and suddenly the lights go out. Instantly, the ship is plunged into total darkness. The engines stop, and the ship begins to lose speed. Dr. Keith immediately runs to the upper deck. Along the way, he encounters several crazed crew members who were devouring each other. In one of the corridors, X O'Neill pounces on him. Neil screams that he's hungry. He must feed all the mouths or they will eat himself. You could see the teeth clanking on his body in the lantern light. Dr. Keith pushes Neil away and runs away. When he was almost to the top deck, something appeared right in front of him. A figure covered in mouths. It looked at him with dozens of eyes and drooled. The creature lunged at him, and the doctor ran as fast as he could. It demanded that the doctor give him the body. The doctor recognizes Melissa from the voice. It was her, or rather what she had become. The distance between them was rapidly closing. With his last strength, the doctor leaps out onto the deck and sees a mass of containers in front of him. He decides to hide. He rips the seal off one of them and runs inside. Heavy footsteps were heard outside. The creature was looking for him. Suddenly, another blow of the storm and the deck tilts. The doctor heard the bindings burst, and then the whole thing flipped over. A few seconds of free flight, and the container hits the water. Water begins to flow into the container from the cracks. The doctor rushes to the door but cannot open it. The water was rising fast and the air was getting smaller and smaller. Then he felt a bump. The container has reached the bottom. That's it, that's the end, he thought.